Hey guys, this is Claudio Giuliano here, and today I am coming at you with a new video. And today I wanted to share with you guys and announce that the Real Ink Index for Clip Studio Paint is officially available and live in the store. And in today's video, I wanted to demo the set for you guys so you guys can check it out in detail. And I'm really excited to show you guys the set because the ink index for Clip Studio Paint has been in the works now for many years. I actually started on the ink index for Clip Studio Paint many years before I did the ink index for Paintstorm. I decided to put the Paintstorm version out first because there were some specific things that I was able to do, first of a kind things that I was able to do because of Paintstorm's brush system and mantra when it comes to engine. And the Paintstorm variant is really the first dynamic and responsive brush set. And it was a brush set that responds to technique. And it's a set that actually responds to your hand. And what we do for the ink index for Clip Studio Paint is we take over many of those mantras. They're done in a different way because each software has a completely different brush system and a completely different mantra when it comes to settings. And of course, each software has a different kind of brush engine as well. So the ink index for Clip Studio Paint was started many years before I started on the ink index for Paintstorm Studio. So what we have here for the ink index for Clip Studio Paint is not a brush for brush port. What we have here is all new brushes, and then there's some brushes that are almost identical ports, but for the most part, everything is basically from the ground up, building off of the foundation I started years ago, but also building off of the foundation and many of the mantras that were brought forth in the original ink index for Paintstorm. So it's a mixture of both of those things, but it's not a brush for brush port. But if you were to go back and forth between both ink index variants for each software, you would feel that they are from the same family of mantra, idea, and design. So there is a consistency carried through each variant from the original ink index for Paintstorm and the ink index here for Clip Studio Paint. So each variant of the ink index for different softwares, they're going to all bring different unique results, and then they're also all going to share similarities in feel and result. So over the years, you guys have always asked for brush sets, and I always told you guys that I wouldn't do an official release until I was able to bring you guys something that would bring forth brand new results and brand new feel. And that was what I was able to achieve with the original ink index. And because of that, that allowed me to then go back into the foundation that I made for the ink set for Clip Studio Paint and totally evolve it, bringing over those mantras and foundations and ideas. And in turn, that allowed me to achieve brand new results for Clip Studio Paint. So this is a deeply designed brush set, and each brush is designed to give you different results. Now, the original ink index was all about being dynamic and responsive and responding to your hand. And the ink index for Clip is responsive, and it's going to respond to your hand as well. And while we don't have the same kind of dynamics, because the brush systems between the two softwares are just a very different approach, there are strategic placement of settings and deep design to still allow these brushes to respond to your hand and to respond to your techniques. So there are a variety of first-of-a-kind things that you're going to find in the ink index for Clip Studio Paint. And really all the brush indexes in general are approached through the same mantra. So there are first-of-a-kind brushes in the set, but there's also first-of-a-kind attributes and features. And I would say a pretty big standout one is that the set is designed for specific pen input technologies, designed around them and for them. So in other words, when you get the set and you download it, there's going to be two versions of the set. One specifically designed for the Apple Pencil and the iPad Pro, and another specifically designed for the Surface Pro and the Surface Pen. And the version for the Surface Pro is also going to double as the version for all desktop and Wacom Technology and other input technologies as well. So they're designed specifically for each. And that is so you can get a usable experience, that is so you can get the intended experience with the brushes across different devices and tools. So if you were to take the iPad version and put it onto the Surface, it would not work and your results would be completely different. And that's because each of these pen technologies are very different when it comes to their pressure, when it comes to their curves and the mathematics. So that's a big part of the depth of design that goes into the brush set indexes. And this is a first of a kind approach which was brought forth with the original ink index, which I first demoed in 2016. And that approach is the same mantra here. Designing all brush set variants specifically for each input technology. So the brush set was designed upon my years of work with analog tools, and then of course my 20 years of work with digital tools. And really the first custom brushes I ever made were in the 90s for Adobe Photoshop. I was probably like 13 years old. And then when I finally transitioned to the first Cintiqs, that's when I started to go in and make my custom brushes for Photoshop for years. And these were things I never released, but when it comes to actually making brushes, that's how far back I go with it. So when I first tried Clip Studio Paint, I didn't even know it was the same software. This was back when it was Comic Studio. It was very different at that time. And of course, it had the different names with Manga Studio and then Clip Studio Paint. So years later, when I started using the software as Manga Studio, I didn't even realize it was the same software I had tried years prior as Comic Studio. But then when I finally transitioned, of course, I had to learn a completely new brush system and learn how to really exploit this new engine that Clip Studio Paint brought forth, because I had just spent years and years of mastering the brush system of Photoshop and also of Corel Painter. So I always found Clip to really kind of be more like Painter than Photoshop, but even in comparing it to Painter, Clip had just a really new approach to the brush system and a completely new approach to brush engine. The brush engine in Clip Studio Paint is incredible, and that's really one of its major standout features. And it took a decent chunk of time to transition over to it. And that's why I didn't release anything, because I didn't want to give you guys something that wouldn't be impactful. I didn't want to sell something that I felt was subpar or not there. And most of all, I didn't want to do an official release that wouldn't be impactful to your workflow and your work. So let's get started, and we're going to start demoing the set. We're going to start doing some demos here with the iPad Pro and Pencil, and then we're going to move over to the Surface Pro, and we're going to do some demos with the Surface and its pen. So I want to start with a group of brushes that I think are going to be very game-changing and impactful for you when using Clip Studio Paint, especially for comic artists, because these are the very first true halftone brushes for Clip Studio Paint. These are not static brushes either. These are dynamic brushes. This allows you to achieve a value scale from pretty much 0 to 100 with the halftone. So that means you can paint with halftone, you can build form with halftone. And you don't have to take in static halftone patterns with these. You can go in and create dynamic results. And I first showed the pattern brushes back in 2016 when demoing the original ink index. So that's how far back these go. And halftone is something I've always implemented throughout the work. If you go and look back at my archives and things like that. So that's why I designed these in the first place. And I've brought them here to the Ink Index for Clip Studio Paint, and I think they're going to be very impactful for you guys. And I think for those of you who are comic artists, I think the halftone brushes for Clip Studio Paint can be really big game changers for you guys. In the results that you'll get with them, in the fact that you won't have to take in static halftone patterns. Once you try these brushes and you can see what you can achieve with the halftone, and how you can bring forth depth and form with them, and how they achieve the value scale, I think it's going to be very impactful to your work and your comics, because the halftone brushes came awesome for Clip Studio Paint, and they are very similar to the ones that come with the Paintstorm set, but they are slightly different. There is a nuance to the ones for Clip that I just really love, and I really love the results for them. And these are very different than the halftone brushes that you find stock in Photoshop. These are not based off of them. These were actually made long before those ever existed in Photoshop. So they aren't similar in result, and they aren't similar in feel. They're a totally different mantra. So when you try the halftone brushes, I think you're going to see the impact that they have, and all the different awesome effects that you can create with them, and the depth that they can create in a variety of areas. They're really fun to work with, and it took a while to achieve this and pull this off for Clip. So I'm really excited about them, and I think you guys are going to enjoy them. These are the first full real halftone brushes for Clip Studio Paint based on varied pressure and dynamics. And they are the first halftone brushes that are going to allow you to achieve a full range of value with Clip Studio Paint. So also in the Ink Index for Clip Studio Paint, we have a wide range of brushes that are built upon bringing forth Sable-like results. And that's what I'm demoing here. Right now, I have one of my favorite brushes in the set, which is the Flynn brush. And I want to lay down some lines with it and show you the results. So I want you to take note of the dispersion of pressure, especially the dispersion of pressure on the low end, the lightest end of the curve. You can see how that dispersion is coming through on the smallest detail on the lightest end of the pressure spectrum. They're very much specially designed for that. That's so you can get a very large amount of detail in when you need to, and then that same dispersion is carried through on the fuller end of the spectrum, the heavier end of the spectrum. I personally have a really light hand, so the set is designed around having an extremely light hand, but it's also designed in a way that will work out for a variety of hand feels. So the brushes that are giving the Sable style results are going to bring forth really Sable-like mimics, as you can see here. And like I said in the original Ink Index video, if you were to pull up a video right now of someone inking traditionally a comic with a Sable brush, going in for the detail, I think you would see how similar the results are here. So these are going to work out great for comic work, for cell shading and feathering. They're going to work out great for hand lettering and script. And it's really all about the dispersion. Now, every brush here in the Ink Index for Clip Studio Paint is designed deeply, and it's designed to give you a totally different result. Some more subtle, and in other ways, you'll see those changes in a more dramatic way. These variety of Sable-style brushes are also great for fine art inking and doing scratchboard-style work, so you can implement these brushes for pretty much any style of art, from simplified cartooning to more detailed comic work to even more detailed fine art. So they are going to work out for a variety of different applications and styles. This brush here that I'm showing you is called the Ink Builder, and this goes back to some of the attributes of the original ink index. One of the things that I spoke about was how it was able to build the ink up and layer it on top. Many of the brushes here in the clip set are designed in this strategic way to mimic that same effect. And that brush that I was just showing you is one of them that is deeply designed for that. Also brought over from the original ink index are the specialty brushes like the Sable Daubs and the Texture Sable Daubs, and those things that I showed you back in 2016 and also showed you last year upon the release of the ink index. So all new versions of those are brought over to this version of the set for Clip Studio Paint. You can get many cool results with these. Really interesting, realistic style results, and they really bring forth a new kind of fresh look to the work when you use them, and you can implement them for a variety of different things. I want to go back to some of the other Sable brushes, and I want to show you one that I really love using, which is called the Thrice brush. There's a couple different versions of this brush in the set, and this gives you a really nice, long, sharp result. And this works out great for feathering and works out great for a variety of different things. For fine detail, but also for bigger, larger detail when you're getting in big shapes and kind of blocking in the form with the ink. So works out for really big feathering, also works out great for really fine feathering. So the Thrice brushes are some of my favorites in the set, and I use them a lot. Also brought over are the Dynamic Sable wash brushes. And the wash brushes also bring forth that ink building effect, similar to the ink builder brush that I showed you. And that effect gets brought forth more as you go up in the wash. So we have the low wash, we have the medium wash, and the high wash. But all three allow you to create that ink building effect to get those very seamless transitions, those transitions that instantly build form. And then you can go in with the heavy wash and start bringing forth even more form. So I implement those a lot as well. Of course, we also have the rough style inkers and the gritty style inkers, the sketchy inkers that allow you to go in with a more sketch style, using them kind of like a pencil, but then you can double that and implement it more like a Sable. So many of those are included here in the ink index for Clip Studio Paint as well. What I'm showing you here are some of my favorites. This is the rough ink brush. And as you bring forth form and render with it, it starts to give you a texture-like effect, you know, really giving you that rough ink effect. And these are really fun to work with, and I really enjoy the results of these. Now, just for fun, I brought over some of the 3D brushes as well. They don't work the same as the Paintstorm versions where you can almost pretty much sculpt with them. That's not how they work here. So they're still very experimental, but I did bring them over because you can get some cool results with them for lettering and things like that. They don't work like how the Paintstorm versions work, but they do still give a cool result. So now we're going to go in and actually ink something. I have this old sketch that I keep around for demo purposes, and we're going to go in and ink this. And I'm starting off with the halftone brushes, and I want to show you how they can bring forth form and how you can mix them in when you're using the ink index, and how you can use them in practical applications. And we're going to also mix those with some of the Sables. So for the Sable on this one, I am using the Flynn Sable, and really enjoy using that for this style of work. And I really enjoy the result of it. It's a little bit more on the loose side, the Flynn brush, and it depends on what size you're working as well. And of course, you can change your brush sizes at any time you want, and that will change your result. But naturally, usually I keep all the brushes the sizes they are, as they are designed. So this brush, the Flynn brush, is one of the main ones I use in the set. I do use pretty much all of them, but this is one of my favorites. So we're just going to lay this down, and I want you guys to just check out how it comes and how things lay down with this style of Sable. Brings forth a really inky result and very fun to work with the Flynn brush. And then we're going to go back into the halftone brushes, and as you can see in the areas of shadow, I'm blocking that in with the halftone. And this allows you to create really cool results. It allows you to create quick form with halftone only if you want to do that. And as you can see, how the form is building up when I implement this. So this is one practical application that you can use the halftone brushes for. Of course, there are other versions that are finer. So I could have gone in with a more finer pattern of the halftone and used that. So you can use these, in various applications. You can use them when you're actually working with a character. You can use these to set things into the background. You can use them for the background to get really cool background effects and create depth to pop whatever the focal point is. And they're just really awesome and fun to work with. And I really truly believe these are going to be a game changer for you guys using Clip Studio Paint. Now, of course, we're not going to be able to show every brush, so I'm trying to power through these as fast as possible when I was filming. But I do think you'll get a good idea at the variety of different results that you can achieve with the Real Ink Index for Clip Studio Paint. So now we are going in with one of the Sable Daub brushes. And as you can see, this brings forth a really different result in look, and also it has a different feel when you work with it. So you can get a very texture-like style result with the Daub brushes, really fun to implement. Here I'm going back in with the rough ink, which is pretty much a rough style Sable. And as you can see, the result we're getting here, as we render, it helps bring forth a texture-like result as well. And it's giving us that rough result. Here we are using the Thrice 5 brush, Thrice number 5. Again, similar mantra in giving you that rough style inker. But also this one is for more fine precision detail as well. So you can go in to very small areas with this brush without having to zoom in, and it has that precision as well. Another one of my favorites in the set is called the Derezzed brush. This allows you to go in and create form very quickly. And, it brings forth a very pure black ink style result, but it's allowing you to pop the form. You can use this for this application, for rendering, and then you can also then go into the negative and bring forth the render even further. Which is what I'm doing here. And then you can also implement this Derezzed brush for when you're coloring and doing your color work as well. And you can use it for texture. You can get a lot of cool texture results with that brush. And of course, all of the brushes here are also made for your color work as well and for your color. So you can implement all these brushes for color as well. So now I have the Surface Pro pulled in, and I just wanted to lay down some lines and marks and show you how they come with the Surface. So this is the Pro 6 and the 4K pen. It's especially designed around the 4K pen and really natural feel. So I spent a long time refining the set for the Surface Pro and its pen. It's going to have that natural feel. You're going to get that natural dispersion. I really like inking with the triangular tip with the 4K Surface Pen. I really like the result it gives. And I just want to lay down the lines here and show you the consistency of the dispersion of pressure and the quality of the results here. And like I said, also, if I were to take the Surface version of the set and plug it into the iPad, the results would not come right. They would really be totally off, and vice versa for the other version. And that's why they are each deeply designed for the specific input technologies. So here are some examples of more full pieces done with the Ink Index for Clip Studio Paint. This owl here, as you can see, the depth when we start going into the really fine detail, this kind of result is possible with the Ink Index for Clip Studio Paint. And you can see how it was implemented, and I was using a variety of brushes there. And same for this more recent piece, this quick slimer that I did, which was for the brush set promotion actually. So Same thing here, using a variety of the Ink Index brushes with this piece. And some of the brushes in the Ink Index for Clip are also built for tilt, but they're designed for tilt in a strategic way. And that is to allow the brushes to have better response to the movements of your hand. Some of them are for size dynamics with tilt, but most of them are designed with tilt in a strategic way to bring forth the responsiveness of the brush, and that helps bring forth the abilities for the brush to kind of better map the angles of your hand. And that's one of those mantras from the original Ink Index brought forth back in 2016. We are also bringing over the Pencil and Paint Index. I'm hoping to have those ready sometime this spring. So I wanted to quickly show you my global pen pressure settings for the software, and these are what I feel get the best results with the set if you have a very light hand like me, but this will all depend on your specific feel. But I wanted to show you this. This is how my global pen pressure settings are set for the iPad Pro and the Pencil. I will include this in the folder, and I will include how it's set for the Surface Pro and desktop as well. Just wanted you to see that. And now the next thing I want to talk about is the installation of the brushes. So we now gain the ability to drag and drop the brushes right into the software in the latest version of Clip Studio Paint. I just floated the Files app on top, and now I am long pressing on a brush and I can simply drag and drop that right in. And I can also do that with multiple brushes. When I long press and then I tap on some of the other brushes, I can now take them in groups in one shot. And we didn't have this ability before. And that's part of the reason I didn't release the set sooner. The set's actually been done for a while, but I wanted you guys to really have an easy way to get them in on the iPad Pro. And we now have that ability in the latest version. Now, it's still going to be kind of a pain when it comes to trying to download them directly on the iPad. So you can do that and you can unzip them, but you'll have to save all 60 plus brushes one by one into your iPad file system. So I think it would be easier for you guys to unzip the brush set folder on a desktop, go to the iCloud website, upload all of them to your iCloud drive to a custom folder, and then you can just simply go to that custom folder, float the Files app on top of Clip Studio Paint, and then you can go in and drag and drop multiple brushes at once. And I think that'll be the fastest and easiest way for you guys to get the brushes into the software for the iPad Pro. All right, guys, so that is going to wrap up today's demo video of the Real Ink Index for Clip Studio Paint. So like the other brush set index variants, I spent a pretty decent chunk of time working on and designing the brushes that you will find in the Real Ink Index for Clip Studio Paint. I spent the longest on this variant of the Ink Index. So the Ink Index for Clip Studio Paint is one of my all-time favorite things to ink with in the digital space. And once I was able to really finally pull off the things that I've always wanted to pull off with the software, it really quickly became one of my favorites. Now, I really enjoy all of the variants for it pretty equally, but the version for Clip is for sure one of my all-time favorites. And if you get the set, I do think you're going to have a lot of fun with it, and I also think it's going to enhance the software for you and enhance your experience inking with the software. And like I said, I didn't want to do an official release for Clip Studio Paint until I was able to achieve the things that I've always wanted to achieve, and until I was able to bring forth brand new kinds of results. Everything here in the Ink Index is built from the ground up, and it's based on many years, 2 decades in the digital space and working for many years traditionally before that. So if you are interested in getting the set, you can get them at the link in the description below, or you can just hop onto my website and go to the shop section. Also, I want to say I greatly appreciate everyone who's already bought the other index variants for RStudio Pro and Paintstorm. I'll have a nice chunk of updates coming, hopefully by spring, for the other variants. Guys, I want to thank you for tuning in today. If you like this video, it'd be great if you can share it with your friends, if you can give it a thumbs up. If you can comment, but most of all, be best if you can subscribe. We will be back soon.